Hello and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rasool, and today we are speaking about an exciting new movement called Women Walk at Midnight. Now, Women Walk at Midnight is a movement where women are literally gathering across Cape Town at night to take a walk. It raises the issue of how unsafe it is for women to walk at night and why it shouldn't be this way. After the break, we're going to be speaking to the founder of Women Walk at Midnight South Africa, alongside someone who hosted one of the walks in Khayelitsha. But before that, we're going to hear from you. Do you feel safe walking at night? Let's have a look.
No, I do not feel safe walking around at night. Even during the day sometimes, just depending on where I am, I don't feel safe at all.
No, not at all.
I never walk around at night because I wasn't raised like that.
There's lots of things that you don't do at night, and walking around is one of them.
No, I don't feel safe walking around at night.
It's not safe.
It depends on the location, but generally no. Because when you grow up being taught that it's unsafe to be outside after dark.
No, I do not. I definitely do not.
Getting mugged, getting robbed.
Get robbed. Like me, I lost 2 phones.
We're living in a very cruel world. People have come up with so many strange ideas to make money. People are getting their organs removed for sale, so I can get kidnapped for my private parts. Someone might want to steal my liver, someone might want to steal my heart for whatever reasons that are known to them, but I do not feel safe at all as a woman in South Africa.
Because of these gangsters, women mostly are getting raped almost every day, and so I don't feel safe at all.
It's just normal to get robbed. It's not news. You get robbed. People are in front of you. They look the other side. And I think the people still, they know that people fear them. Like, for instance, if you get robbed, you can't, even if you see the person, you can't report, because once they know that you reported them, then it's an issue. Even if it's one person, it's difficult. But these people normally walk in groups, 3, 5, and they've got weapons, either knives or guns. So you just can't defend yourself.
Probably getting killed. Yeah, getting kidnapped, getting lost. Yeah.
There's always people lurking around the corners, and you never know who is just standing there, or if somebody's waiting to attack you. And as a woman, you're very vulnerable, because physically, as a woman, you are less powerful than men, because men are physically stronger. They're just built that way.
People are taken advantage of, no matter the gender, male, female, any time of the day. People get robbed. People see people getting robbed, and they can't do so much because they are scared that maybe the robbers will come after them because they've witnessed it, or maybe their families will be targeted.
Probably nothing. I just don't do that. I've never been accustomed to being the one to be walking around at night. I don't do that. So I would never want to be walking around at night.
I think more lighting. I think more police going around, and I think if like rappers, criminals were put behind the jail, and I think that would help.
I think we need security. Maybe if we can, as a society, if we can organize people to security to be tight. That's all. And the police, because also to help the police, because also police are not safe.
I think they can help by improving lighting in the roads, more tower lights, brighter, those that can also work even during load shedding. And they can also improve on the security at night, cops that operate at night, no matter the area, no matter where, people must be looked after. And also they must also improve on their law. If someone rapes, they must be locked in jail. They must save their punishment for doing whatever that's wrong. because I feel like it's so unfair that I have my family killed by someone, and then the next thing I'm seeing that person again walking freely on the streets. It's not fair.
I think we could have like patrols, like community patrols, where we have groups of people just like walking around and making sure that everybody is safe. They could wear like maybe something to show that they are the safe people, you know, the people to run to if anything happens. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's feasible, but to have like night patrols, the actual police, because where I stay, we have the community neighborhood watch. And I mean, it's you, me, and someone else, and we walk out at night and we're like, we're gonna do this. But I think if the police would get involved, that would make a difference.
That was a short video showing some views about whether you feel safe walking at night or not. We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are speaking about an exciting new movement called Women Walk at Midnight, which is literally women taking to the streets and walking late at night. And with me in studio is Amrita Pande, who is a sociologist and professor at the University of Cape Town, and who founded the movement here in Cape Town, and also Mini Makolo, who you instigated a walk in Khayelitsha and took people through. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Amrita, I'm going to start with you. You initiated the movement, and you also have a history in researching and writing about women's gender issues. And so, before we look at Women Walk at Midnight, I just want to ask for you to give us an introduction into you and your work.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Delhi in India, and I guess my stint with gender and feminism starts quite early. I did my master's in economics, and I was interested in becoming a feminist economics, but that was not very in vogue at that moment. So I ended up moving to sociology, and I did my PhD from the University of Massachusetts in the United States. And I did my thesis on reproductive justice issues, specifically on transnational surrogacy, so women who have babies for money. And then from there, I started doing my postdoctoral work in Tripoli in North Lebanon, where I ended up working with African migrant domestic workers, so women who had migrated from all parts of the continent to Lebanon, and the struggles that they faced being migrant domestic workers in Lebanon, but also not just about oppression, but the kind of unions and collectives they formed there in Lebanon, despite all forms of oppression and the very oppressive kafala system of migration. From there, I made another continental move, and I came to University of Cape Town, and that's where I teach now in sociology. I guess what holds all my work since my master's and PhD days is, as you said, around gender, around justice, and also around space. And I think the other thing that holds us together is trying to take my research beyond academia to dialogue with policymakers, with civil society, and with communities at large.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. And that's so interesting because you're talking about sort of interrogating space. And also, this movement is about space. And this movement is about interrogating justice there, interrogating safety there. And Mimi, just to come to you. So, you initiated the walk in Khayelitsha. And when I heard that, I was thinking, you know, because of the Khayelitsha Commission that was done in 2014, and they've identified all of these structural issues that make Khayelitsha unsafe on a broader level, but also, you know, what stands out, I remember there was a number of articles just about streetlights and the lack of lighting and how that affects women's movement, how that controls women's movement and makes it unsafe. And it's been said over and over that that's just one of the small things that they could fix on a structural level. And so maybe also just tell us about yourself, tell us about why you joined or initiated a walk in Khayelitsha and what that reality is like.
Thank you. Amrita told me about the movement, and I resonated a lot with it because we also house about 30 girls through cycling. We introduced cycling to these girls. As much as we know, like, cycling is a male-dominated sport as well. So we also teach the girls how to ride, how to commute, and we also introduce them to the sport of cycling. Also, there are safety issues there as well. For one, because they're women cycling, and so I resonated a lot with the women walk because of that, and the being unsafe as a woman. Never mind at night, even during the day in a township, it can get pretty unsafe. And one of those reasons as well with the street lights. When I organized the walk, it was also one of the concerns because I'm like, okay, I need to see where is there more street lights because there is quite a few streets without light. But I think because of the many or the number of women that are in the walk, as well as we notified as well a few patrolling officers as well, just to know that there will be something like this. But mostly just being in a township, it gets unsafe. So I really wanted to put that out there or make an awareness of it. Also, it's just safety concerns that why can't we as women walk at night? Why basically we should be able to without feeling unsafe and all that. So I wanted to bring that awareness, if I could call it that.
No, definitely awareness. And I love that. I worked with an organization once that were giving bicycles to schoolgirls in very rural areas who had to travel like 2 hours to get to school, let's say, through the bush. And I remember one of the things was the empowerment, the difference it made to their lives just to have a bicycle. And so not just to get to school faster, but safety from people they're going to meet along the road. And also it deflected them from taking lifts from older men who might say, I'll take, so there was this whole sort of, not empowerment, this whole structural shift when a girl is given a bike. And then maybe just to tag on from that. And so we know there's these safety issues. What is the lived reality for someone that's living in an area, like does the danger control the movements in any way? Because I'm very interested in how, you can't walk in certain streets. How does that affect your lived reality?
It does in a way that, at a certain time, or in Khayelitsha is quite big, so there are areas where I wouldn't say at a certain time, but as soon as it gets dark, it can be difficult for you to even walk to the shop. Even growing up, I live in Khayelitsha. I know there are areas that I can't go at night. Even just to go to the shop, you must be extra careful. You must have someone to walk with you sometimes, especially walking alone. So that's why I think the safety in numbers. But it does affect you in a way that there was a time I was using even like public transport. I would have to notify my brother before I get to the bus stop to come get me at this bus stop, because also there's like a lot is about crime more than anything else. So you must look out for someone that might try to mug you. So if you're walking with a male, for instance, it gets a bit hard for someone to mug you. So it's in that sense where, what if my brother's not there tomorrow and I have to go walk alone? So it does affect as well, because you quite, like a lot of the time you look behind your back, you feel a lot of agitation. So I think it does affect you in that sense where you're not free in a way to do what you want at a certain time, of which you should be able to. And especially because they mostly target women because they feel it's easier, they're easier targets, I feel. And yeah, if I can touch on that.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
And then also just like, even from me growing up in an area where we were policed, you can't study very late at a friend's house, and there's always, I think, the threat of sexual assault and rape. right? So that's also, the big thing that's out there. You're afraid of being grabbed and dragged, which does happen, we know. Amrita, so Women Walk at Midnight was initiated, but it wasn't, when you do a Google search, you find that in India, actually, I've seen the Facebook page that listed starting at 2019, and so it's a movement that originated somewhere else. And was that where the idea came from, and how did you get to starting it here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of movements, I think, of reclaiming the streets at night has happened across the world in various forms. But the one that you are talking about, which is also called Women Walk at Midnight, was started by a feminist artist who also happens to be a dear friend. We did theater together, Malika Taneja. And she started this idea. So for her, it's more like an artistic practice. And she started it in Delhi. And I've always wanted to be part of that movement, and I kept waiting for that chance to visit Delhi and be part of the walk. And then I said, why do I have to wait for me to be part of it in Delhi? Why not bring the movement home to Cape Town? And so that's where the first walk happened in August last year. And we started small. And I just spread the word to 5 women, and they were to spread the word to 5 other women. And this way we ended up being about 22 women, and we walked the streets of Observatory. And when we were talking about street lights, I remembered suddenly that it was, of course, load shedding. As soon as we were to launch the walk, we were all standing outside, and we were very anxious because this was the first time we were going to walk the streets of a neighborhood where some of us have walked before, but never, as you said, Mimi, never without fear. And we were going to do this at night, late at night, and of course then ESCOM also decides. So it's load shedding, and it was pitch dark.
Oh, wow.
And 22 women, and in the beginning it was quite a bit of anxious giggles, I remember. And then we started walking. We walked, and we walked by the river, by the Leersbeck River. Not one person there, not one street light. But the moments of anxiety started easing. In a couple of minutes it started easing because we were 22 women.
Yeah.
And then we took her around, and we moved to one of the most busy streets, which is Main Road. And that's where the story starts getting interesting, of course. But I think that's what you were also getting at, the safety in numbers, one, and being able to forget for the first time, even if just ephemerally, even if for a moment you forget that this is a really violent place and I'm a woman. You just forget, and you just have the joy and pleasure of breathing at night, of seeing the moon and the stars, and not having that thudding heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sounds fantastic. And I haven't joined a walk yet, I will say, but I really need to. So, because I can barely imagine that, right? All I can say is walking at night and having fear. I want to ask, in one of the articles that was done around it also, one of the women said that she sees it as a political statement. And it does definitely come across this way. I think you just, in terms of what you're saying, that it takes 22 women to be together, or 22 people to be together in order for you to feel safe. What is there a deeper message here?
Absolutely. I mean, how can women walking the streets of one of the most unsafe cities in the world not be political? It's fundamentally political. But the thing that we also want to say out loud that this is not a protest. It's not a demonstration. Yeah. We are not slogan bearing on the streets and saying we want our right to breathe at night. I think the point of Women Walk at Midnight is to avoid that spectacle and instead make it a norm. So one of the reasons why women can't walk at night is because women can't walk at night, right? If there are more women walking the streets at night, more women will be able to walk the streets at night. But the kind of world we live in, we are policed violently. If we have to, or we need to, or we want to walk the streets at night, we'll be violently put in our place. We'll be told that this is unusual, unwanted, and this is not your place. Public space at night is not this place for a woman. And we'll be pushed back home. And that's what this kind of policing culture does, right? In the name of providing us safety, we are taught what the norm is. So Women Walk at Midnight is about reclaiming space. It's about reclaiming public spaces. It's about reclaiming the streets at night, but it's not a demonstration on an organized protest. It's about women walking for the joy, for the pleasure, because it is their right to walk the streets at night.
Mimi, does that resonate with you? I mean, it does with me, just in terms of the policing, because I'm thinking about like all of the messaging that I've been getting, you know, not in that context, not in a policing context, but in a safety context, that you shouldn't go out at night, you should be afraid, there's all the danger out there. And then I remember when I was young, my younger brothers having a later curfew than me. And so, and you work with young girls. What is your take on this?
No, definitely. I mean, you are told at home, for one, not to be out late. If you come home late, there will be consequences. Even if you do come across a police person, even they say, "What are you doing late at night outside?" And you will be reprimanded for that. And for girls as well. It does a lot, especially because they're women, and most of the time, even us as well, we like after training, we're like, please get home, go straight home, don't go via a friend, or even it's instinct in us as well, because we know how unsafe it could be. So at the same time, I want them to be able to walk at night or cycle at night, as long as like there's lights and everything, they're visible. But for now, it's still not. I would love for them to grow up not being afraid to take up streets, or to safely walk home, or to safely cycle home. But for now, it's really not the case. It's still very unsafe, not just with the mugging, because the kidnappings, rape is still out there. So definitely, this initiative, for one, is quite beneficial, because they will grow up seeing women walking at night and not feel that they can't. So I think this kind of movement will help in that way. The more women walk, the more the younger generation will grow up not feeling that they can't, or feeling unsafe, or passing it down to their own kids or younger siblings. I feel it could be like really beneficial for like future women generation as well.
I think that's great. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, "You can't be what you can't see." And so even just to like have that visible. So for me, for instance, when I said my mother couldn't drive, and I drive now, and I just look at my daughter, she's never going to have this phobia, the same phobias that I had, or the same fear that I had behind the wheel, because she's going to have grown up seeing a woman just drive. You know, there's just a lot of things. Like, these women can do anything now, and there's that shift. I just also want to note like what that really brought up for me when we're talking about the policing of women, and we're talking about it for safety, but it really feeds into victim blaming also, because we see that I've had at least one survivor send me a message to say she was assaulted on her way to gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. And one of the questions the police asked her was, why were you out at that time? It's still dark. And so just to bring up sort of that issue of, yes, there's policing, but yes, there's also victim blaming. And we see this sort of both sides. And it's almost as if we're supposed to be warned and we're supposed to know these things. But ladies, we need to take a short break, and we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are having a great conversation about a new movement called Women Walk at Midnight that was started in August last year. And still with me in studio is Amrita Pande, who is a sociologist and professor at UCT, and Mimi Makolo, who runs a cycling academy that teaches young girls how to cycle, and also hosted a walk in Khayelitsha. So, ladies, we've been speaking about sort of the rights that women have, to the rights that women should have in order to walk at night, to feel safe, not just for safety, but also for fun, because we should be able to. So I wanted to ask you, I'm sure this conversation and some of the stuff that you're saying in terms of structural limitations is resonating with a lot of women. Part of your work has also been mapping. So you were speaking about mapping reproductive justice, And in one of the articles, you say part of this process of designing a walk is also mapping the streets where we'll go. Safety is a huge priority. So prior to having a walk, you have to map where there are street lights, where it is safe. And maybe you spoke about even sometimes getting like officials in to come and walk with you guys. You also said you've lived in many cities, and there were a few of them where you felt safe to walk at night. So, with that experience, what do you think needs to be done? And do you have ideas, suggestions, and what we can do to make the streets safer for women?
Wow, that's a big question.
It's a long one. Yes, it's a lot. But just we're speaking about all of these things that make it difficult for us to walk.
Yeah.
And you've lived or stayed or visited places where you could walk. Can you pull some things out of there for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna connect my lived experiences to this movement, and I think one of the basic, we have very few rules in this movement, with this Women Walk at Midnight movement, but one of the things is that we do not want the police to escort us, and we do not want permission from anyone to do it. But that is a huge gamble, right? As you were saying, that when we walk from one neighborhood to the next, it is true that we are walking in the streets of a very unsafe country, especially for women. So even though we are feeling secure enough in numbers to say that we do not want the police, we do not want private security, because that will defeat the purpose, because then it becomes a spectacle or an event. It doesn't become women taking on the streets by themselves. But it requires us, it requires me and the co-host of the walk in any neighborhood to do quite a bit of work. It requires us to make sure that we map the streets in a way that we are not going to take any unnecessary risks. And every neighborhood, so by now we walked 9 very different neighborhoods, starting from Observatory to Musenberg to Salt River to the city center to Khayelitsha, and now we're going to do our next walk in Langa. Every neighborhood has its own risks, right? And we don't know what the risks are till we do the walk, but we have to make sure that we have a plan. And once we start demystifying the night by doing these walks in various neighborhoods, we also realize that we are doing something so unusual, right? By women walking the streets, whether in big numbers or small numbers, by walking the streets at night. And what really works for us, and this is the Khayelitsha walk, I think we learned really well, that so when does your heart as a woman thud most? Is it when you're walking a street that's completely empty? Or is it when there are lots of people on the streets? I think it's when the street is completely empty and you don't have a comrade, or a stranger comrade, or a male comrade, or a female comrade. You're walking alone and you don't see another human being, and you don't know where the predator is going to attack you, right? That's where our feeling of anxiety comes. When we were walking the streets of Thasampo village in Khayelitsha, and I remember a lot of our women walkers were very anxious because, as they rightly said, we haven't even walked the streets of Khayelitsha in the daytime. And this is what, of course, this spatial kind of divide that exists in South Africa and in many other parts of the world has done to us, that we don't actually walk different neighborhoods. We don't, whether day or night. And so what felt really safe is that there were so many people on the streets. I don't mean women, mostly men, but there were people selling food on the streets. There were people who were interacting with us on the streets. They were not part of the walk, but they were interacting with us on the streets. And I think when we think about the problem, which is gender-based violence and sexuality-based violence on the streets and public spaces, we think of solution as artificially masculinist borders around the women. But what really has worked in neighborhoods is our numbers, so the safety of our numbers, but also communities being on the streets and just supporting us. Almost in none of the walks have we had an interaction with a human being, forget male or female, which has made us feel at risk. It's always been either a interaction of curiosity. What are you women doing at night? Some women have said, can we join you? Men have asked, can we join you? Some men have said, I'm going to stay a little far away. This was in Khayelitsha. I'm going to stay a little far away, but maybe you need a few men to be comrades as well. So it's always been a feeling of the neighborhood accepting it, accepting the power of it, and wanting to help out in whatever way. So I think it emerges, the solution kind of emerges as more people walk on the streets.
I love that. And I did want to ask, so you've experienced it like while you're walking, but have you had men want to join the movement or come and walk with you guys? Have you had to request, even from a space from we want to be there to keep you safe?
Yeah, every single time.
Oh, is it?
Every single time there've been well-meaning partners who wanted to join the walk to protect their partners.
Yes.
Sometimes, but every single time, either the police has wanted to protect us, male police have wanted to protect us, private security has wanted to protect us, our partners have wanted to walk with us, but all well-intentioned. And in some walks, of course, as I said, just people walking on the streets just liked it and wanted to support it and wanted to be a bit of this little, just not come into a walk because they realize that will defeat the purpose, but form a little kind of a border of protection, well-meant protection around us. But of course, this is only meant for women. We do not allow anybody to join the walk who does not identify as a woman.
I love what you said. I mean, there are very few rules, but we do not want police to escort us and do not want permission. I think that's so powerful. And I think for me right now, that brought home the fact that we want to normalize this, right? We want this to be a normal thing. When I walk, when it's not a woman walk at midnight walk, I should still be able to just go out of my house and walk to the shop and go and buy some milk, and it should be okay. Me, I want to ask, so when you guys walked in Khayelitsha, because we spoke quite a bit about that, and we spoke about, what was the response of the neighborhood?
Very interactive. Like Amrita said, like you'd get people wanting to join or asking what's happening, where are we going, or even some would be like, is it a tour? So I think it was well received. People liked it. People wanted to join. Also, they were concerned from other people why, like even like male counterparts would be like wanted to join and asking why can't they join. And there was this point where someone did join and was just minding their own business. I think because it's not normal, or it's not every day that you'll see women walking, and that's why I think to many people it was like there's definitely something going on and not just people walking. But I think in entirety it was well received, especially because Khayelitsha is known for not being safe and the violence, of which we didn't experience any of it. So that was good. I think it was very successful. There were a lot of takeaways from it. But I think above all, I think I would definitely love to do more. And because Khayelitsha is big, so that was like a small part of Khayelitsha that we walked. I think definitely more identifying another part of Khayelitsha that we can walk in. But there are also a few factors to take in place because it was winter, there could be rain, load shedding, when it's dark, how are we gonna, but I think overall it was a very good walk, very successful one.
Can I ask you, so one of the things that's interesting, I think, is that this is not a very visible issue. I mean, by walking, you are making the fact that women can't walk visible, because what we essentially do is just follow these sort of unwritten rules that it's not safe and we don't walk outside, and so people aren't used to seeing it. Was it also, as people were asking, why are you walking? And as you are rejecting sort of people's offers to keep you safe, was it an example to make that issue more visible? And I think I'm just asking both of you. It's like to make people more aware that actually it is dangerous for women to walk at night, because it's not, it's not in their awareness. I'm hearing such a lot of stuff right now that I don't often think about. Were people surprised at all?
Definitely, but at the same time, there were a lot, I would say, maybe not per se saying it, but cheering for us that this is something good. This is, I mean, before even like the people I invited, wanted to invited more people, and a lot of people that were going were like, oh, Stephen, are you sure? What are you going? What are you doing going to walk in Khayelitsha? I think at the same time, yes, you're right. It does create that part of it where it's not safe, making people aware. But I think the more we can do it, I think the more it should be normal. Yeah, I'm not sure what more I can add, but definitely it did bring that sense of, okay, that anxiousness of, okay, cool, what I'm about to do is not normal. And a lot of people seeing it happen as well were like stunned, but at the same time they like that something like that is happening, and you could see what, like, from what people wanting to join.
I love that. I'm thinking of the young girls and the young children also just like watching you, like walking through the streets and like having this thought like, oh, it's possible, right? And that you know, we can do this, that women can walk. Amrita, so I want to ask you, you spoke earlier about, you know, when we spoke about sort of what the rules are and how we want to normalize it, and that we shouldn't sort of put this, I think you said, you know, masculine border around protecting women. But part of these things are structural, though. Part of these things are, they are structural things that make a place unsafe. And so I often, when we do shows or episodes around crime and safety for women, I go back to the Khayelitsha Commission often, because it's very clearly laid out that these are structural things that can be done to improve safety. And so I want to also just pose a question to both of you then, you know, just in your experience, in your lived experience, it doesn't matter whether it's observatory, I know it's very different, so similar to Kensington where I grew up, but what are some, and I think if we were to speak to policymakers, right? If we were to speak to the people who are sort of tasked with improving our structure, are there tangible things that we should be doing, that they should be doing, to make things safer?
Absolutely. And I think we touched upon one of the most important ones was street lights. And it sounds so trivial, but street lights are so important in just making a person feel that it's okay to be walking into a public space at night. And we have experienced that in load shedding. We have experienced the lack of light in load shedding. We have experienced how badly lit many places are, because the way we map these walks very often is that we choose one really busy street, and that's because we want to interact with people, but also because they're street lights. It is. So street lights is one really important thing that we did not think about as much before we started doing these walks. But as I said, the other thing is to have people on the streets. To have people on, and how will we have people on the streets if everything is so private? Everything is about private transport. If everything shuts down, if public transport shuts down at 9 o'clock, if public transport is so bad in the first place, like it is in this country, how are we going to feel connected? Right? If there was a bus load of people stopping at every bus stop, we pass so many bus stops in our walk. Is there any person ever sitting at a bus stop? No, of course not, because there is no bus that's going to service them. But if people were commuting by buses, if each bus stop had women and kids and returning from shopping, sitting, a bus was stopping, people were getting on a bus, people were getting off a bus. So this whole thing of how do you make the streets alive? And it just cannot be the people making the streets alive. It also has to be policies. It also has to be public transport. It also has to be the government. So many things need to come together and you can't just put money in the hands of private security to make things right. It has to become the norm that people will be using public spaces, make public spaces more usable.
And the thing is, I think even with private security, on the one hand, yes, there is a push for, they're not the same, but visible policing, for example, and there are spaces where visible policing can, like at hijack hotspots, where visible policing can make you feel safer. But I've often sometimes felt like private security discourages people being on the street, just in the way that they like drive around, right? What about you, Mimi? Like, what are some of the stuff, like if you could speak to policymakers also, and just to say, these are some of the structural things we need to feel safer.
No, definitely. I think it's just to touch on what Amrita already said, which is street lights. I mean, just like any other place, if it's dark, it can get quite scary, even if there isn't like threat, but because it's dark. So I think definitely that, and visibility, seeing another person on the street. If streets become alive, not just during the day, because once, say, a certain time comes in, everybody's inside, nobody's outside. So I think it goes down to public transport as well, because if 9 o'clock hits, you can't go anywhere. Because there's no public transport, and most of our people use public transport to commute. So if there isn't even that, you will hardly see a person outside, because sometimes it's the distance the person might need to get to another point. So definitely those things are very vital for safety. People out there on the street, because also even with like vendors or people, like their businesses close at a certain time. So if the shop is closed, or because for one, they're also scared, there's policies or even structures in place that will get them to close early, for one. So I think definitely even like private businesses can definitely get in on the roll. So definitely street lights, public transport, just people being out and about.
Can I also ask you, like, one of the things I know in the area that where I grew up also was like sort of abandoned lots, right? So abandoned sites of where there maybe no houses not built, but also the upkeep of those places where then dangerous people might gather, or the parks also at night and stuff like that. Do you think? I mean, those are also sites. I'm just thinking in terms of upkeep. I mean, I'm not even just during the night, during the day. So we've had like lots of sites, which then government sites, which then became abandoned, which were knocked down but not fixed, which became difficult to really walk past. And those then are also places that is the responsibility, by letting those places fester, they become dangerous sites, right, for women to they keep women off the street. They keep women from walking past that to the shop and so forth. And then, just even on the show, we've heard those are the places often that women are dragged into. We don't have a lot of time left, but I want to ask two things. How can women get involved with Women Walk at Midnight? And that is, one, how they can join, or two, how they can host.
Oh, that's a very simple answer, and I'm glad you asked this question. We have an Instagram page, which is Women Walk at Midnight SA, because there are other chapters in India. So Women Walk at Midnight SA, there'll be updates about the next walk. So definitely for women who want to join the walk, they should become part of that Instagram page. And there's information about our WhatsApp group, where again, we post this information. And the point is, join the walk once, see how you feel it, and I assure you, you'll have such joy that you'll want to bring the movement to your hood, and that's how it will spread. Join the walk and volunteer to take the movement to your neighborhood.
Okay, and then they could just get in touch with through the through the WhatsApp and Instagram page, and I'm assuming Amrita with you or whoever's on there, to then walk them through how to host one in the area.
Exactly, and I should add that on August 9th, Women's Day, is our next walk in Langa, and it'll start at 8 p.m. and all the details we'll post on that Instagram and that WhatsApp group. So I hope lots of women can join. It's Women's Day.
Yeah. I want to ask though, it's called Women Walk at Midnight. I've seen you're saying 8 p.m. I've seen 9 p.m. Sometimes the walk start. Do you walk until midnight?
So what we do is that we walk for about 1.5 to 2 hours. We walk very slowly. It's about pleasure. It's not for fitness. And what we always do include is at the end we occupy a public space and we reflect on the walk. And that is something that we cherish after each walk. So it does end up going on until midnight.
Okay, sounds so great. Mimi, anything to add from your side, just from the experience of hosting one? Anything to say?
No, definitely, because I joined one, and after that one, I was definitely, I wanted it. I really saw it nice where, imagine in my own neighborhood, women walking freely. Also like other women, seeing other women walking, and how it would be beneficial for them, and how happy that would make them. And I really enjoy them, and I'm definitely going to be on the one in Langa, and I would definitely like to host more, but yeah, it will be basically posted on the Instagram page, but I would encourage more women to join, definitely.
Great, I'm inspired. I'm definitely joining Women Walk at Midnight. Ladies, we are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we've been having a great talk about a new movement called Women Walk at Midnight. Now, we are almost at the end of our hour together, but before we go, we're going to have a look at some of the footage and photos from the 9 walks that women have taken at night across Cape Town. Let's have a look.
Say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say you see what the king. Say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say create everything. Jah are the king, and we say Jah are the king. Jah are the king, and we say you see what the king.
That was some footage and photos from the walks that women have taken across Cape Town at night. And that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lenina Rasool. Goodbye.